Hello, dear listeners. Picture a Vermont dusk, late October frost kissing the air, leaves crunching soft underfoot, hills rolling out like a quilt stitched by hands long gone. Welcome to our quiet corner stories for those who've walked a long road, held love tight, felt it slip, and still wonder what's left ahead. These are tales that settle in like a fire you've stoked yourself, whispering, "You're not alone, and there's time yet to listen, to climb, to love again." Today, we're with Margaret Tate, 72, a widow in Dorset, Vermont, drawn to a chime ringing from a hill she swore she'd left behind. It's her story and Daniel's, a soldier whose 4 letters from 50 years ago weave a journey through memory, loss, and a hope that rings even in silence. Pull up a chair, hold something warm, coffee, cider, whatever steadies you, and let's step into the bell on the hillside. What sound calls you back to the ones you've loved? Margaret Tate lives alone in a cottage on Dorset's edge, mossy shingles curling at the corners, a smoky chimney puffing thin wisps, a porch where her rocker creaks slow under her weight. At 72, her knees grind like stones, her hands tremble as she pours coffee from a pot indented years back. She still sees his crooked grin rising in the steam. 7 years ago, he died heart-stopped mid-shovel in a snowstorm, his red cap a cruel flare against the white. She found him, sank into the drift beside him, her scream swallowed by the wind howling through the pines. That shovel rusts in the shed now, untouched. Her daughters, Rachel and Sarah, are far off Seattle's gray drizzle, Raleigh's sticky heat. They send cards thinking of you, Mom, love you, and call on holidays. Their voices bright but clipped, busy today. Talk soon, the phone goes quiet, and her house hums with small sounds. The fridge's drone, the stove's faint snap. A clock she's stopped winding because time feels like a guest she didn't invite. She knits scarves that pile up in a basket, wool scratching her palms, unworn by anyone. She waters basil and thyme by the window, murmuring, "Come on now," though they droop no matter her coaxing. She flips through albums, Ed's grin, teeth crooked from a tractor fall in 79, the girls smearing jam on his flannel shirt, giggling as he roared, "You little rascals." She'd scold him for spoiling them, but he'd wink, "They've got your eyes, Margie, can't say no," and she'd blush, apron dusted with flour, the kitchen alive with bread and laughter. Now those photos are her tether, locked behind a wall. She's built grief and silence her shield against the emptiness. Sarah's last visit ended sharp. "You don't even ask about Lily, Mom. She's 3, and you've never held her." Margaret froze, tongue thick, and Sarah left, tires crunching snow, leaving a silence heavier than Ed's absence. Weeks back, it began a faint chime, silver and clear, drifting from the hill behind her house. A steep tangle of pines and shadows looming over her cottage. It's loudest at dusk, when she sits on the porch, shawl tied around her shoulders, Ed's pocket watch cold and her coat stopped at 3:17. The moment he fell, a gift he'd wound every morning, humming, "Keeps me on time for you, Margie," she asked Tom, her neighbor, a farmer with hands like bark, if he heard it. "Wind, Marg," he grunted, kicking mud off his boots. Henry, the mailman, squinted at her, used to see it wave from that porch, but offered no more. At the store, folks smiled, patted her hand, old ears play tricks, but it wasn't a trick. It pierced her wall, tugging at her like a thread she couldn't snap. One afternoon, fed up with its pull, she muttered, "I'm finding it," yanked on her boots, grabbed her cane, and stepped out, the hill daring her like it did decades ago when Ed hauled her up for blueberries. Kissing her stained fingers under the summer sun, the climb was a war, a quarter-mile of roots and needles, her breath a rasp in her throat, her cane sinking into the soft earth, her knees screaming with every step. Halfway up, she slumped against a birch, chest heaving, the watch heavy in her pocket. Tougher than that. Margie, Ed teased in her mind, his voice warm. Chasing ghosts, Ed, she said, hands gripping the dirt, remembering his laugh, the girls' buckets clinking with berries. She pushed on coats snagging on branches, sweat beading cold on her brow until she broke through the trees. There it was, a wind chime, small and rusted, dangling from a sycamore, its tubes clinking in the breeze. She reached out, touched it, the sound sharp in her bones, and sank against the trunk, exhausted. Her cane struck something, a faint clank beneath the needles. She dug with stiff fingers, unearthing a tin box, half buried under roots and earth, its lid rusted shut. The hill had guarded it all these years. Prying it open, she found them, 4 letters, folded tight, brittle as memory, in a young man's scrawl. She unfolded the first, Daniel's words hitting like a hammer against her wall. Her hands shook, eyes blurred with tears she hadn't shed since Ed. Wind whipped up, a dusting of snow stinging her cheeks. She couldn't read more, not now. She sealed it shut, left it there, and stumbled down, legs trembling, the chime ringing in her ears. Days passed, but the chime wouldn't let her rest. Margaret pulled her shawl tight, gripped her cane, and climbed again, each step a battle, roots snagging her boots, her breath fogging in the chill dusk air. She reached the sycamore, chest heaving, and sank against it, the chime ringing soft above her head. Her fingers, stiff and cold, pried the box from its root-bound hiding place. She opened it, took the first letter, and sat on the damp ground, the hill quiet around her as she read, "Dear Ma, Pop," says Jimmy. "It's cold here, bone cold, the kind that seeps through your boots and squats in your toes till you forget what warm feels like. Where by a river can't say where bugs hum at night, dread hushes the day. I miss the stove most, your stew bubbling in that chipped pot, steam curling up as you stirred with one hand, the other swatting Jimmy when he'd sneak a taste, his grin wide despite the scolding. Pop be stoking the fire, grumbling the logs weren't split right to green, Danny. Then he'd wink over the flames. You'll learn, boy, sist boss Jimmy stack the wood straight, you little toad. And he'd stick his tongue out, darting off to chase the cat, till the yard rang with his laugh and her shouts. Last night, I sat by a lantern here, mud caked to my knees, and saw it clear as day that Sunday we ate trout on the porch. Pop bragged he hooked it, rod wobbling as he reeled it in. Jimmy tried too, spilled cider down his shirt, grinning sticky as you scolded him gentle. You laughed so hard you cried, Ma, tears catching the sun, and we all piled around the table, passing bread, voices loud and warm. I'd trade every dry sock in this camp for the smell of your biscuits, sis, even with those burnt edges you swore were just right, for Pop's growl when I'd snatch a bite before grace, his eyes soft behind the frown. Training starts tomorrow, rifles heavier than Pop's old axe. Colder too, metal biting my hands. I keep seeing your quilt in my head, my blue with those stars you sewed late, humming hymns while I peeked from the stairs, half asleep. I broke my arm at 8, remember? Fell off that oak racing Jimmy to the top, crying loud till you wrapped me in it, sang low till I slept, your voice warm as the wool against my cheek. Keep it ready for me, will you? Tell sis to bake that cake, hide it from Jimmy, or he'll eat it all and grin with crumbs on his chin, proud as anything. Pop, I'll fix that fence when I'm back. I nailed it tight last summer, swore it'd hold, and I'll make it stronger still, hammer swinging beside you. I love you all more than I can write, more than this pen can carry, more than this war can steal. Hold that stove close, I'm dreaming of its heat every night, keeping me whole, yours, Daniel. Margaret's breath caught Ed by their stove, tossing in a log, Rachel and Sarah tugging her apron for a taste of stew, giggling as it bubbled. Her quilt green, patched with his old shirts draped over him when he napped, snoring loud enough to wake the cows. She'd laughed when he burned the trout, Beats' army chow, Margie, and they'd eaten anyway, the table full of their voices. But she'd let it die quilt folded in a trunk, stove cold, house silent behind her wall of grief. I let it go, she whispered, the watch icy against her chest. Snow thickened. Wind whipped through the pines. She tucked the letter back, scratched on Ed's old grocery list, "Daniel, your quilt's warm." "Ed, I miss your fire," and stumbled down, her cane slipping in the soft earth. Back home, she sank into the rocker, the chime faint through the walls. Daniel's words were a hammer tapping her shield. Ed's grin flickered in her mind. The girls' laughter echoed, but she pushed them down, too raw to hold. She stared at the dark stove, the untouched albums, her hands still in her lap. That night, she lay awake, the house creaking around her, wondering if she'd buried too much, if the warmth she'd lost could ever come back. The wall stood firm, but a crack had begun. Margaret couldn't read all four, not that she didn't want to, but they were too heavy. That first letter broke through her surface, Daniel's words pulling Ed, the girls, a life she'd locked away behind her wall, and another would have shattered her completely. Each was a piece of pain and love. She had to take slow, one breath at a time, like chipping at stone. And that hill, it held them, like a quiet promise from Daniel, a sacred ground marked by the chime, his soul stitched into the earth. Taking them felt wrong, like stealing something that belonged there. She left them, each climb a vow to face them bit by bit, snow and wind driving her down that first day, her heart too full to carry more. Days later, the chime tugged harder, a silver thread through her restless nights. Margaret bundled up, her shawl fraying at the edges, and climbed again the hill slick with frost, each step a grunt, her cane digging deep into the frozen ground. She reached the sycamore, breath clouding in the cold air, and sank against it, the chime sharp above her. She pried the box free, fingers numb, and unfolded the second letter, the hill wrapping her in its stillness as she read, "Dear Ma, Pop, Sis, Jimmy." Rains pounded 3 days straight, tense a swamp, boots are mush, and my fingers ache writing this, ink smearing as fast as I scratch it down, paper curling wet in my hands. Last night, I dreamed of the barn pop pitching hay, sweat on his brow, barking at me to lift with my legs, or I'd regret it come morning, his voice rough but sure. Sis braiding that yellow flower crown, humming off key while the cows chewed slow, her hands quick in the dusk light. Jimmy chasing frogs by the creek, hollering he'd catch the king of 'em all, his voice bouncing off the trees till Pop'd yell him back for supper. Woke up to thunder, thought it was Pop banging the shed door shut, shouting, "Get in here, Danny, for you catch your death." And I laughed, alone in the dark, mud sucking at my cot, the sound fading into the rain. There's a kid here, Sammy 16, maybe cries for his ma every night, face buried in his sleeve so the sarge won't hear, his shoulders shaking quiet under the damp canvas. Last watch, I gave him my bread dry as dirt, but I told him about your cookies, sis, how you'd hide 'em in that tin under the stairs, swearing Jimmy'd never find 'em, though he always did, crumbs on his shirt. He smiled a little, teeth chattering, said his ma baked oatmeal with raisins big as marbles, but his eyes stayed wet, like he could see her kitchen fading with every mile, every shot ringing out, "I keep hearing that wren from the oak, ma, its whistle sharp and sweet," cutting through the dusk when we'd sit out back after supper. You'd hum those hymns, voice rough from the day, while Pop whittled sticks into nothing, Jimmy begging for a turn till he'd nick his thumb and yelp, you bandagging it quick with a sigh. Found a flower here yesterday, yellow, small, half crushed in the mud by a boot. Pressed it in my book, it's for you, sis, a crown you don't have to braid when I'm home. bright as you deserve. Things are loud now, guns barking sharp, yells tearing the air, but I close my eyes and see the porch light, Ma, that old bulb flickering when I'd sneak in late from fishing, boots dripping on the steps. Keep it on, will you? I'm following it back, I swear I am, through this mess. Tell Pop I'll beat him at trout next summer. He'll growl I cheated, but he'll clap my back anyway, proud behind the scowl. Love you all till the stars quit, till the rain stops, till I'm sitting there with you again, passing the bread, hearing Jimmy brag about nothing. Yours, Daniel. Margaret's hands shook, the pressed flower slipping to her lap, yellow, brittle, like Sarah at 6, arm broken, whimpering as she sang Amazing Grace to hush her. Ed whittling by the fire, Rachel weaving dandelions into her hair. That porch light dark since Ed's last wave. Daniel gave Sammy bread she'd stopped baking, stopped reaching out. I let it fade, she murmured. A wren darted past, its whistle piercing the quiet. She laughed, tears warm on her cold cheeks. Not too late, she whispered. Wrote on a napkin, Daniel, your wren sang today. Sis, your flower's safe, and tucked it into the box. Sleet stung her face, dusk closed in fast. She sealed it, left it, and climbed down, legs heavy under her coat. At home. She flicked on the porch light, weak, flickering, but alive. Daniel's kindness struck like a second hammer, cracking her wall wider. She sat by the window, staring at the glow, Ed's snores ringing in her ears, Sarah's tears sharp in her memory. She pulled out the albums, flipped through them slow, Rachel's dandelion crown, Ed's wink, her fingers lingering on the pages. That night, she didn't sleep. Something stirred, small but insistent, a light she hadn't seen in years. The wall trembled, but she wasn't ready to let it fall. Winter deepened, snow piling thick, but the chime cut through her restless days. Margaret wrapped her coat tight, breath short as she climbed the hill, a wall of white now, roots hidden under crust, her cane punching through to hold her steady. She reached the sycamore, panting hard, and sank into the snow, the chime ringing clear through the stillness. She dug the box out, hands numb and red, and unfolded the third letter, the hill cradling her as she read, Dear Ma, Pop, Sis, Jimmy. It's quiet tonight, too quiet, the kind that sits on your chest and waits, heavy as stone, like it's holding its breath for something awful. We lost 3 yesterday, good boys, loud boys, gone in a flash of mud and smoke before they could yell back, their laughs cut short in the chaos. I'm still here, but my hands shake writing this. My breath catches like it's not mine anymore, stuck in my throat with every word. I keep seeing the kitchen, Ma, you at the stove, stirring the dented pot. Pop swore he'd fix someday, the smell of broth filling the room like a promise. Sis sneaking a taste, blaming me when you'd swat her with the spoon, her giggle quick and bright. Jimmy under the table, sneaking crumbs to the dog till it'd wag and give him up. Pop shaking his head with a grunt. Pop sit at the head, pipe in his mouth, saying, Danny, you're tougher than this old oak. His voice steady as the wood he'd split, but I don't feel it now, not here in this cold. I cried last night, hid it under my helmet, let the rain wash it off, but it was there, wet and real, soaking through me. Sammy saw, didn't say a word, just sat close, handed me half his cigarette, lit it with shaking fingers like mine. I smoked it slow, thinking of that time I fell off the roof, 12 years old, trying to patch a leak for Pop before the storm hit. You ran out, Ma, yelling my name over the wind, wrapped me in that quilt till I stopped shaking, told me it's okay to break, long as you get up after, your hands steady on my shoulders, your voice a lifeline through the pain. I'm breaking here. Ma, I won't lie to you. The guns, the mud, the screams, they're bigger than me, louder than Pop's axe splitting wood, heavier than the logs I'd haul for him. But Sammy's cigarette, your quilt, Pop's grunt when I'd stack the pilots keeping me up, keeping me here, one breath at a time. Tell Jimmy he's tougher than me, he'd laugh, call me soft, and I'd let him win that one, just to hear him crow about it over supper. Sis, keep singing, your voice got me through that fever when I was 9, sweating under your flower crown till you'd hush me quiet, cool cloth on my head. Pop, I'll patch that roof when I'm back better this time. No leaks, you watching me work with that pipe in your hand. Love you all more than these shakes can blur, more than this quiet can press, more than I can stand losing. Keep the kitchen warm, I'm still your Danny, even when I'm weak like this, even now, yours. Daniel, tears froze on Margaret's cheeks, Ed slipping away in the snow, her hands shaking as she held him. Sarah storming off, her voice breaking on the porch. I didn't get up. She whispered Ed had called her tough, hauling pails when her back ached, singing through the girl's fevers, but she'd buried that strength with him behind her wall. You kept going, she said to Daniel, tracing his words with a trembling finger. Snow bit her skin, wind howled through the pines. She tucked the letter back, wrote on a scrap, Daniel, I know your shakes. Ed, I broke too, slipped it into the box, and hurried down, her cane sinking deep back home. She lit the stove, the first flame in years flickering to life. Daniel's weakness struck like a third hammer, splintering her wall wide. She baked bread edges burnt, center warm, and ate it alone, tasting it slow, Ed's snores louder in her mind, Sarah's sharp words cutting deeper. She dialed Rachel's number, fingers hovering, heart pounding, then hung up before it rang, fear still clinging. But the crack was too big now. She pulled the quilt from the trunk, held it to her face, breathed in Ed's faint scent. That night, she slept under it, dreaming of the girl's laughter, the wall shaking hard, winter clung fierce, snow up to her knees, but the chime roared through her dreams. Margaret climbed one last time, coat heavy with frost, breath ragged, the hill a beast under her boots. She gripped her cane tight, each step a groan, the cold seeping through her gloves as she pushed past pines bowing low with white. She reached the sycamore, legs trembling, and sank against it, the chime steady through the brewing storm. She pried the box free, hands shaking worse now, and unfolded the fourth letter, the hill holding her up as she read, Dear Ma, Pop, Sis, Jimmy. Shipping out tomorrow, big push, they say, and I can't sleep, not tonight. It's dark here, not just the sky, but the kind that presses in, thick with guns echoing all night. Shouts I can't unhear ringing in my ears like bells gone wrong. I keep seeing the hill outback, Pop hauling me up in the wagon, red paint chipped, yelling, Hold on, Danny, as it rattled down the slope, his laugh rough when I'd tumble out into the grass. Ma calling us for supper, apron flapping in the wind, voice carrying over the pines till we'd run in. Sis and Jimmy racing to that oak, betting who'd climb highest before you'd holler dinner, and we'd tumble through the door, muddy and grinning, table loud with us all. Last night, I dreamed we sat there, all of us under the stars, the air cool and sharp with pine. Jimmy pointed at Orion, swearing he'd shoot it down someday with that slingshot he loved, his eyes big as the sky. Sis laughed, her hair a mess from the breeze, teasing he'd miss by a mile. You held that quilt, Ma, blue stars fading at the edges, and I felt your hand on my shoulder, warm even in the cold, steady as the earth under us. Woke up to frost on my blanket, breath puffing white, but it stayed with me, your voices, that hill, the way home smelled like bread fresh from the oven and hay Pop stacked high, his hands dusty from the work. I'm scared, Ma, not of dying, though that's close now, closer than the river, but of not making it back. Not fixing that fence I promised Pop, hammering nails beside him, till my hands blistered and he'd nod, quiet, proud. Not eating your stew, burning my tongue 'cause I couldn't wait for it to cool, you fussing I'd learn someday with a smile. Not hearing Pop grumble I'm late again, his eyes soft anyway behind the growl, waiting on the porch with that pipe. I'm tougher than his old tractor, though I swear it to you. I'll fight through this mud, this noise, this fear, 'cause I've got you all with me, Sis's flower pressed in my pocket, yellow and small. Jimmy's frog croaking in my head, loud as he was. Pop's growl when I'd trip, steadying me. Your hum, Ma, threading it all together like a song I can't lose. I'll be home by harvest, trout'll be biting, and I'll hook the biggest one yet, Pop, just to see you smirk and say, not bad, Danny. Don't worry, I'm carrying you here, in my chest, where it's warmest, where the dark can't reach, no matter what comes. Love you more than words can hold, more than time can stretch, more than this war can break. I'm yours forever, don't forget it. Not for a minute, not ever. Yours, Daniel. Margaret sobbed no more came after March 3rd, 1969. Just silence, a boy lost to the dark. Ed hauling Rachel in a wagon, laughing as she squealed. Her at the stove, Sarah racing in with muddy boots. The stars they'd watched, his voice low, that's us, Margie. Holding on, you didn't make it. She whispered, but you carried them. She'd carried Ed his snores, his burnt trout, his steady hands, but locked it all away. A blizzard roared, snow swirling wild, she tucked the letter back, wrote on a torn page, Daniel, you're home in them. Ed, I'm carrying you, left it in the box, and started down, wind tearing at her coat, her wall in ruins, back home. Daniel's promise smashed what was left of her shield to dust. She pulled the quilt out, draped it over her shoulders, its weight soft and familiar. She dialed Rachel, I miss you, come home. Then Sarah, tell Lily about me, please. They came within days. Rachel wept over the letters, tracing Daniel's words. Sarah held the flower, he's ours. Mom, and stayed, filling the house with voices, laughter, footsteps. Margaret sat with them, quilt around her, tears falling free not from grief, but from something alive again. Winter locked her knees, stopped her climbs, but the chime sang on in her heart. With Rachel and Sarah back, Margaret changed slow at first, then sure and bright. She baked bread weekly, edges still burnt, but warm, left loaves on neighbors' porches, the smell drifting through her kitchen like Ed's old days. She hung the chime on her porch, its ring a comfort now, not a pull to the hill. She wrote Ed's snowman tilting in the yard, Daniel's stars sharp in the night sky, left notes in the box for others to find, carried up by Tom, her gruff neighbor. She laughed with Rachel over coffee, spilling stories of Ed's awful trout. She met Lily, held her close, sang Amazing Grace, with a voice shaky but full, Sarah smiling beside her. The town climbed the hill, kids scribbling, miss you, Pa. Old folks leaving, dance next time, and she smiled from her porch, part of it all, her wall gone. Spring came, she faded gentle, quilt around her shoulders, chime in her ears, joy steady in her chest. A life lived again. Daniel's stove warmed her through a war. His light led her out of the dark. His weakness gave her strength. His promise woke her to live. What's your fire still glowing? Your light flickering? Your break healing? Your promise waiting? Listen, climb. Take care till next time. And so, dear listeners, that's Margaret's tale, The Chime on the Hillside, a story of warmth gone cold, walls raised tall, and the quiet strength it takes to let them crumble, even when the days feel long past. She didn't bring back what was lost, but she found a new song, one that echoed through a house alive again, with daughters near and a community to share it. As you sit there, I ask, is there a chime calling from your own hill? A love you've tucked away, a hope you've let fade? What might stir if you listened once more, if you let it ring? Thank you for being here with me today. Until we meet again, tend to your soul, don't shy from its whisper, no matter how faint, no matter how late it feels.